So in this video, I'm going to be looking at the factors and obstacles that are going to affect Manchester United's success over the next decade or so. I'll also look at Liverpool and Manchester City post Klopp and Guardiola and what I think those two managers should and will do after they leave both of those clubs. And at the end of the video, I'll give my prediction on if I think Manchester United will win the league in the next decade. Well, I'm going to be answering all of those questions in this video, but before I get into that, are you sick of paying extortionate prices for football shirts? Well, that's why you need Jersey Fever. I used to only be able to afford one or maybe two jerseys per year, but because Jersey Fever have new season jerseys available for less than £20 and retro jerseys for around £30, I now have a whole collection of great quality football shirts, and my favourite has to be my Manchester United 2003-2004 shirt with Ronaldo on the back. So if you like any of these, a link will be left in the description below, and if you use code ATLANTISFOOTBALL at checkout, you'll also get 5% off. So by the end of the season, it will be 9 years since Manchester United last won the Premier League, closing on a decade, but from now till say 2032, will Manchester United win the league again? Or will they go through a similar domestic drought to the one that we saw Liverpool have after their 1990 league title win, which only ended 30 years later when Klopp's Liverpool won the title in 2020? So the biggest obstacle in United's path isn't actually the Glazers in my opinion, although it is a close second. It's actually Klopp and Pep still being in the Premier League. See, only 10 teams in Premier League history have managed 90 points or more in a single league season, and 4 of those teams have been Pep's Manchester City or Klopp's Liverpool, 2 for each manager. And if you look at the top for most points ever accumulated, all of the top 4 are Klopp or Guardiola teams, with those being the 4 sides to record more than 95 points in a single season. This season, that is probably going to be in the early 90s for both City and Liverpool, still insanely impressive. So in reality, Manchester United don't just have to get back to a general title winning standard whilst Klopp and Guardiola are around. They need to surpass that if they want to win the title when those two are around. United are going to have to get more than 90 points. City won the league last season with 86, though they probably would have surpassed 90 had they been pushed harder by United, who finished in second 12 points behind them. And so it's likely that even if the next United manager can build a side capable of winning a Premier League in most seasons, it still might not be good enough, with one of Liverpool or City not winning the title this season proving that. So if I was a betting man, I'd rule out United winning it in the next 2 seasons at least, particularly with the rebuild that either Ten Hag or Pochettino will need to conduct. Now before I come on to where Klopp and Guardiola may go after Liverpool and City, what happens to both of those clubs after their talismanic managers leave? But first, how long are Klopp and Guardiola actually going to be around? Well, there are credible reports that Jurgen Klopp has promised family that he will leave Liverpool at the end of his current contract, which is up in 2024, just 2 seasons away. Guardiola at City has a contract until 2023, which means that next season would be the last of his current contract. I personally think that Guardiola will extend his contract for another 1 or 2 years until 2024 or 2025. So realistically, it's going to be another 2 or 3 seasons before Klopp and Guardiola have gone. I think if Mikel Arteta is still at Arsenal and doing a decent job and keeping them around the top 4, that City will go for him after Guardiola as a way of continuing the culture. Either that or maybe they go for Xavi Hernandez, but that seems unlikely until further down the line, I would say. Luis Enrique could also be an option as well, with all of those 3 managers fitting the style and ethos of City at the moment. Now most likely City will still be competing for titles after Guardiola, as they are such a well-run club and have such a good strategy in place behind the scenes. However, that's not the case to the same degree, at least for Liverpool. I think that it will be Steven Gerrard who takes over after Klopp, as I think he will do a pretty good job with Villa, establishing them as a top 8 club and challenging for the top 6 over the next 2 seasons, and then he'll take over, which I think would be the right appointment, as would Enrique or Arteta at City, I would say. However, FSG's lack of intent in the transfer market is eventually going to catch up with them. Key players in the squad are approaching their 30s, and the decline is around the corner. Players like Van Dijk, Mane, Salah, Henderson and Firmino are all going to decline from where they are now at the same time, just because of age if nothing else. And I don't see Liverpool, despite the excellent transfer decisions they are capable of making, being able to solve all of those issues straight after Klopp. And so I see them regressing to 4th or 5th initially after Klopp's departure. So this means that if United are smart about their strategy for winning the title as soon as possible, then they will prioritise the post-Klopp and Pep Premier League League era, meaning that they need to be looking to have a world-class squad by 2024-25 and beyond, as there will be a power vacuum initially, as there was after Sir Alex Ferguson's departure, where City under Pellegrini were able to win the league in 2013-14, despite likely being nowhere near challenging if they were around in this era. With Chelsea's uncertain future without Abramovich, they aren't going to be in as good a position as they would be now to take full advantage of the power vacuum, and Arsenal and Tottenham don't really have the funds or the ambition to take on that challenge. So if United sort themselves out, get the right manager in and players, then I think it's inevitable that they'll at least be amongst the challengers for the title for most of the second part of the decade. Now this of course is the best case scenario, which I don't see being impossible. The Glazers must surely know by now that they need success on the pitch, and so as long as they get the right manager in, Ten Hag in my opinion, and give him control over transfers and the squad, I see it moving in a positive direction. However, alternatively, let's say they get either Ten Hag or Pochettino in, but continue to operate retardedly in the transfer market, signing only 3 or 4 big name players who are massively overpaid per season, then United are going to hover around 4th to 6th. I don't see United falling out to top 6 permanently in the same way that we saw teams like Inter Milan or AC Milan in Italy do, or Newcastle in the mid-2000s, simply because of the financial capability that they have and the continued attraction around the club that it has towards players and managers. But without a clear, coherent and functional strategy for the long term, United can forget about winning another title. But of course there is the possibility that the Glazers sell up. We've seen the amount of interest that Chelsea have had, and without doubt there's going to be just as many, if not more, for Manchester United, and as long as the new owners somewhat understand football or are willing to completely delegate responsibilities, United are in a better position to challenge. I'll give my prediction for how United's next decade will go at the end of the video, but let's first discuss post-Premier League life for both Klopp and Guardiola. So I think after Liverpool it's likely that Klopp takes 1 or 2 years out of football and then will come back, but where to? With Klopp, he's a manager that suits certain clubs that have a huge culture and fan base behind them, which is why Dortmund and Liverpool were perfect for him. I could see him going back to Liverpool for another stint, but I think it will be later on in his career. Going back to Dortmund could be something that he sees as another separate challenge to his first spell and would be an appealing fit. Napoli seems like a club that would also suit Klopp. Klopp thrives at what you would call sleeping giants, clubs who are massive in the football world but have majorly underperformed over the previous decade or so, and that certainly was the case with Liverpool when Klopp took over in 2015 or Borussia Dortmund in 2008, with both clubs having a sustained period of underperformance. The same goes for Napoli, who haven't won a Scudetto since Diego Maradona was there in 1990, and Napoli have an iconic stadium with a huge support, and so I could see Klopp becoming part of the culture in Naples and bringing a Scudetto to the city. Atletico Madrid is another club that I think would work well for Klopp. Simeone's tenure is surely close to its end, and following him is going to be tough. The next manager needs to be world class and able to build the club around their personality to move on from the cult of Simeone. Klopp usually likes to take on somewhat of the underdog role when he first comes in. The challenge of winning the league with the 3rd biggest side in Spain is one that I think suits Klopp perfectly, and so alongside Napoli I think Atletico Madrid could be perfect for Klopp after Liverpool. As for Guardiola, after City I could see him taking a sabbatical and then going to New York City FC after the 2026 World Cup, which will of course be hosted in North America. I think we could see him maybe go back to Barcelona after Xavi's spell as well, which I think would last till around 2025-2026, and this may make sense as Guardiola only spent 4 years at Barcelona from 08 to 2012, and so maybe he'd see it as a second part of that project. However, I do think that that is unlikely, as I think he'll eventually end up in New York with the City group when the MLS has grown a bit further, but he has expressed interest in managing an international side as well, which he may do after Euro 2024 for the 2026 World Cup. So maybe he leaves Manchester City in 2023 or extends his contract for another year until 2024 before taking an international job for 2026 and the World Cup and then going to the MLS. But which international side would suit Guardiola? Well, the obvious answer that many would say would be Spain, but maybe it's too obvious, and I think Guardiola would see the success there as being limited, as how can you improve on the greatest international side of all time, which was Spain from 2008 to 2012. Therefore, I think we could see Guardiola at another international side, and the nations that would fit in my opinion would be Brazil, the Netherlands and England. Guardiola at Brazil would probably be my suggestion, as it would be the best manager of this era at the greatest national side of all time, and I would love to see Guardiola's style of football in the Brazil yellow, green and blue. The Netherlands and Pep would equally be a legendary combination, with Pep going back to the home of total football, back to the roots of his style of play, and winning a major competition with the Netherlands would without doubt add to his legacy. But also the England national side could be a good fit, with Pep having coached City players like Phil Foden, Sterling and Stones, who will still be around after 2024, and I would love to see what Pep would do with the likes of Alexander-Arnold, Harry Kane, Jadon Sancho and Ben White. So what is my prediction for United over the next decade? So I don't think that United are going to challenge, let alone win the title in the next 2 seasons. Their best chance would probably be in 2024-2025, when Ten Hag has had 2 seasons to build a side he wants, and City and Liverpool are both in somewhat of a transitional period after Pep and Klopp's likely departure. From 2025 onwards, it's obviously hard to predict each year what will happen, as so much can change in football, but as I said, I think we'll initially see Liverpool drop off from the title challenge in pack for the first few seasons after Klopp. City will still be the team to beat from 2025 to 2030 in my opinion, just because of how well run they are. I do think that from 2025 to 2030, United will pick up at least 1 league title, because I think the Glazers will eventually want an escape plan from United, and the next owners are surely going to have more ambitions for United on the pitch. So if I had to put money on it, I'd probably say 2025 at the earliest, with United also picking up 1 more title from 2025 to 2030. So that would be 2 league titles in the 2020 decade, which is still pretty poor for United, but it's equally possible that United don't learn from their lessons from the last decade and go the rest of the 2020s without a domestic league title. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. When will United's next title come? 2025 is probably a bit too optimistic from me, but do you think United will win a title in the next